Welcome to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you, featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your very best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. Now, I'm excited today because we have two people who are on the show with me, my co-host, Deidre Regal, and our guest, who is Vicki Lynn. Now, it's going to be a fascinating show, so tune in and don't stop. Listen to the whole show because you're going to find it fascinating with these two people. I want to introduce my co-host, and her name is Deidre Regal.
Well, Susan, it's always a delight to share a radio show with you. I'm so honored to be the co-host. And today we have the pleasure of having Vicki Hannah Lein with us. And Vicki, by the way, is a referral to our radio show from the wonderful Lynn Walker, who knows, of course, all these wonderful people around the world, and actually how Susan and I became acquainted. So, Lynn, a big shout-out and a big thank you for putting us all together in the same room. Three wonderful women to share 30 minutes together and, of course, for our audience's benefit, and I hope everyone enjoys it. So, Vicki, I'd like to welcome you to the Susan Brender Show. I really appreciate you taking time today, and I'd like to just tell the audience a little bit about you. You are an award-winning educator, singer, songwriter, and international speaker. You're also the adult child of alcoholic home life, is the way I'd put it, and you have been through some pretty difficult and amazing experiences that I think have caused you to grow in wonderful ways, and I think you've used that experience to grow yourself and become the woman you are today. And what I gather from you is you are giving back to the world. You have a new book that is out called The Radical Kindness Warrior's Handbook, which I find very interesting. So we are just delighted to have you here today. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you.
So I've got some questions, if I may. And the first question I have, and I think everybody would want to know this, what motivated you to write the Radical Kindness Handbook?
Well, I was watching a video on YouTube on What Would You Do? And it's a television show. And what they do is they set people up, and the idea is to watch what the audience does. So what they had was a young man with Down syndrome as a bagger at a grocery store, and then a woman who came in who was an actor. And what she did was she basically said mean things to him like, can't you go any faster than this? And have you ever heard of, she was completely disrespectful. And the focus was on what the people were doing in line. And what happened was, as you can well imagine, most people did nothing. Most people just stood there and allowed it to happen. Now, I have to say, my grandson has Down syndrome, so this is very personal to me. And he is such a peach. I just love him. Now, the people who did respond got angry. They got aggressive. And as the grandmother, it's like, well, yeah, I guess I would prefer somebody yelling at somebody about how terrible they are to people just allowing it to happen. But there are better ways to do this. And then what I realized was I have spent my whole life practicing how to never add aggression and always do something. Wow. And so I decided I knew a lot about this, and I have a sense of humor, and I write songs. And so I wrote a book because no one can stop me.
This is true, right, Susan? This is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it.
So one of my songs is Step Up, No More Waiting to Be Good Enough. Lean in, you got to ante up and show your stuff. No excuse, it doesn't matter what has happened to you. And all that remains is stay in the game, and that's the truth. So I really wanted to put an end to bystanderism. I wanted people to stand up instead of standing by, because bystanders are injured when they observe abuse.
Wow. Let me ask you something, Vicki. pardon me. This is something very interesting to me because how many times have you been in a place, for example, where you see somebody, you said with regard to your grandson, somebody with Down syndrome, somebody who was very different. I'm going to use the word different. Kids with autism. I mean, you name it. There's a lot of people that have mental and physical disabilities. Why is it that people understand or should understand that doesn't mean because they're a little different that they're not smart, that they're not interesting, that they don't have a personality, a humanity to them? After all the things we talk about in terms of the way people deal with others, why do you think people just don't get it in their heads that everybody around them has something to give?
Well, I don't know. I know we're afraid of people who are different, and when we go into the brainstem and we go into that, fight, flight, or freeze part of us, we attack, and that's why we get aggressive, because that's easy. And it's the low road in our brains. That's what happens the fastest, is to get aggressive. And in order to learn to train ourselves to respond without aggression, but to respond, it takes some time and practice. And that's what I do. That's what I do with myself, and that's what I do with people, to give them something they can do, a song in their pocket, a story in their pocket that they can tell themselves, to get them out of their brainstem, out of that, reptilian brain, and into their neocortex, where they can find their compassion, their sense of humor, and come up with a solution. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, define this for me, Vicki. Radical kindness. You use this word. Your book is really called the Radical Kindness Handbook. What is radical kindness?
Well, I as far as I know, I made that up, but you know how it is. We're all referencing everyone, but people tend to think of kindness as being something wimpy, and kindness, as Father Gregory Boyle, who wrote Tattoos on the Heart, he said kindness is the most powerful force on earth. There's nothing wimpy about kindness. So it's a radical way of looking at kindness as being. William Ury, U-R-Y, wrote a book, The Power of a Positive No. And he talks about saying a kind and firm no. And this is just new to us. We know how to be wimpy. We know how to be a doormat and make excuses for everyone. And we know how to be aggressive. But it's a radical idea that there's a middle ground where we're clear and kind and firm. And that's why I call it radical kindness.
And it is radical. And I think that the new cutting edge is to be in the middle ground between aggression and being wimpy. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. We need this. We need more radical kindness on our planet. So, Vicki, you share. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Go ahead. No, I could talk forever, so go ahead.
We all could, which is a wonderful thing. We're three women. We can talk forever. I hope our audience is laughing. So you shared with us one very important story about being in the grocery store with the Down syndrome and a grandmother, and you came out. Could you share with us another wonderful story that would take us through the same example so we can all live that and feel that with you?
Well, when I do presentations, I have a picture of Carnegie Hall. And maybe, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? The answer is practice.
Practice.
So how do you get so that you are able to find this place in you at the time when you need it the most? You've got to practice on the little stuff, and I'll get to the story in a second. But you've got to practice daily when somebody's a little snippy with you, and you smile at them. You just smile at them, and you say, "It must be having a bad day." So you have to practice in your daily life a lot to build up this muscle. So this happened to me. I don't know how many years ago, but I was asked to go to Africa for an international school conference, and I got to lead the whole conference in a song, "Beauty Like a Rock." It was the first time I'd ever gone to Africa. But I'm legally blind, So it was the first time I'd gone to Africa by myself. I was scared out of my mind. I just kept breathing, and it was just one of the highlights of my life for so many reasons. It was just unbelievably wonderful. From where my mom and my sister both dropped out of high school. So for me to be going to Africa to do this thing, it was just beyond belief. So I'm in the shuttle after the conference is over, and we're leaving the hotel, and we're going to other hotels to pick up people to take them to the airport. The shuttle is almost packed with people and bags and everything, and I'm just sitting there aglow in the wonderfulness of the moment. And we stop at a hotel, and these two men get in. These two American men, I can tell from their accents, get in, and an African man gets in the front seat. And the two American men get in, and the man in front, the first man who gets in, is screaming at the African man and swearing at him with hyphenated swears. I will not say those, but it's like the worst thing you can say. And he's saying this, and then as Murphy would have it, Murphy's Law, the guy comes in and he sits down right next to me. And then his friend, who's trying to talk him down, sits down right in front of me. And because of how I grew up, my body this is my dad. This is screaming, making a scene, inappropriate behavior. My body is afraid for my life, and I'm in Dakar, Senegal. This is not, he's literally putting all of our lives at risk. And he sits down next to me, and then he says to the guy in front, when we get to the next stop, I'm going to kill you. Oh, I know. So I'm sitting there, and part of me, I want to slap him, I want to shame him, and then I think, no, because I remember my commitment is to never add aggression and always do something. So I just sit with that. I sit with that commitment for a minute, and I get this idea. You get, I don't know. It's take out your cane, I hear in my head. It's like, take out my cane? That makes no sense, but I've learned to just do it. I don't have any better ideas. So I have my little backpack in front of me, my little day pack, and I unzip it, and my cane is folded up. And magically, I swear I did not do this on purpose, it expands on its own, and it lands in front of the guy who's, threatening to kill somebody. It lands on the floor, and it breaks the energy. I mean, you know what this is like, right? It breaks the energy. He stops to pick up my cane. His friend, who's sitting in front of me, who's looking for anything he can do to calm this guy down, says, "Is that a cane for blind people?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Are you blind?" And I said, "Yes." I don't think I said, "Why, yes, I am." But there was sort of that. And he says, "You can, who are you with? Are you with anybody?" And I said, "No." He said, "You came to Africa by yourself and you're blind?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "You are the bravest person I have ever met." And I said, "Why, thank you." So then I turned to the maniac sitting next to me and I said, "So, where are you from?" Isn't that great?
It's great.
So he's from Cleveland. He's 33 years old. He's a pharmacist. He works for his dad. He's come to Senegal to do business during Ramadan, and everybody is not cooperating with him.
So there was a lot of frustration, but that's irrelevant as well, because people, when they are so aggressive like that, have a lot of problems. Something has triggered off those problems. It probably is something to do with the way he was raised. Maybe he was abused. There are maybe 100 reasons why people are that way. Now, here's the thing, Vicki. We live in a society today where people, they're so busy. Everybody's busy. Everybody's running around. Doesn't even have a minute to spare. What do you attribute that to?
Well, it's an addiction, and it's a lie. We make this busyness. Let me just tell you, and this may annoy some people who are listening, and that's okay with me, because I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and neither are you. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and neither are you. Never has been, never will be anyone who always pleases. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and neither are you. That's my people.
Neither are you.
That's my
applaud from the background here for our audience. Let's give a big applaud to you, Vicki. I mean, that is terrific and fun. You know, Deidre, you've had so many experiences with so many different people with regard to trying to offer them a lot of arts to sing, to compose, to dance, to do all kinds of things. And when you listen to Vicki talk a little bit about what her life is like. I mean, here is a woman who is virtually blind and has done so many incredible things like traveling to Africa on her own. There must be something that passes through your mind when you listen to her. What kind of feeling do you get?
Thank you for asking, Susan. How the schedule's worked out today has been so very interesting because I had to schedule a recording studio session. I'm actually in the recording studio on break, and I'm working on a piece called Star Song, one of my own compositions. and I actually just got done recording some vocals on It's All About the Love. And the lyrics are, it's all about the love, baby. It's all about the love. And, Vicki, as you were telling your story about being in Africa and you caught this man's attention, the tears came. So the feeling that I have is this understanding that there's something so much greater than aggression or fear or the sum of the darkness of our life. Rather, there's the aspect of us that lives in the light, that lives in a state of love. And we all want that. We all want acceptance and grace and love in our lives. My personal belief is that all of us have some little something that we deal with, as you said so very well, Susan. And that can either be our greatest enemy or our best friend. And I think what's happening for so many of us on the planet is we're coming to understand that our greatest weakness can be our greatest strength. And, Vicki, I think you're a prime example of this in your life. And the feeling I get, Susan, is one of, wow, this is phenomenal. This is what we humans really are, and it's very exciting. It's very ratifying. So I feel this right now, this feeling of my heart just expanding and opening to what Vicki's telling us, opening to our listening audience. And I would love to say to our audience, as we listen to the rest of our time, the three of us spending together, open your heart to the goodness, the greatness that each of us is as magnificent creations, and really embrace that and look for that in every person that you come in contact with as you look forward in yourself. That's the feeling I'm having, Susan. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to jump out of my chair.
Well, first of all, whenever I have to tell the two of you, whenever I hear somebody who's so talented and sings and does, has this great attitude about things, I just say, wow, this is neat, because you know why? There are so many people who are just the opposite, and you experience them all the time. So when you come in contact with somebody like Vicki, you kind of, I find myself just smiling. I wish you could see my smile. We're not doing video. But I have another thing for you, Vicki. So there are things that you can teach us, and you have techniques that we can use in our daily life. I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, I'm going to finish the busyness because that's one of the techniques. So I have another book called From Frustration to Funny in 10 Seconds Flat, 3 Steps That Work Every Time You Actually Do Them. It was the first book I wrote where I gave myself permission to be funny, and it was just me entertaining myself, and if anybody else likes it, that's great. But the 3 steps are, the first step, and when I did this at a retreat recently, I got 3 chairs. And the first chair is the chair of suffering, and the suffering is the story we're telling ourselves. And it could be a true story. My dad didn't love me is a true story. He was a narcissistic, violent alcoholic. He didn't even really ever see me as a separate human. So I could stay in that true story, my dad didn't love me, or I can learn to find the gifts that my dad gave me, which was my love of singing and performing and my smile. So and my exuberance. I got that all from my dad. So the story of busy, because we all sit around and we're all so busy, and we reinforce the story. And I'm telling you, this is what may annoy some people. It's not true. And I can tell you that because when I was going to graduate school full-time and teaching as a teaching assistant at Oregon State half-time and I had 2 elementary school children and a husband, I was not busy.
Wow.
Because I'd been teaching high school.
Right.
Try being a people pleaser teaching high school, and you'll find out what not fun looks like.
Well, I can relate to that. I got to tell you, Vicki, because when I graduated college, and I'm talking about a lot of years ago, I also taught, and I taught junior high school. And when you want to talk about kids and their understanding of whether you're a good teacher or not, you just have to be in that classroom, and then you'll hear things that don't make, that kind of make you feel, oh my God, these kids are so smart, and I'm only a step up, be a step ahead of them. Now, okay, let's really get into the situations where kindness will not work or is not appropriate, because sometimes it isn't.
Well, I'll finish the 3 steps. The second chair moving over is you need to catch that it's a story and release it. Like I am so busy. Well, then you have to realize that's a story you're telling yourself. It's a cultural story. It's like women aren't good in math. It's a cultural story. Some are personal, some are cultural. The third step is, gee, I wonder what I could do to simplify my life and let go of. I don't have to take my kids to 10 Halloween parties.
Right.
I mean, that's what we're doing. We are making ourselves crazy because we escalate everything. So in that what could I do to simplify it? What could I let go of? How could I, so that ends the 3. So when kindness doesn't work, okay, I'll give you an example that just happened to me recently. Flying back from Austin, I'm waiting in the chair. The people are deplaning, and this couple comes out. I think they're in their early 30s. They're about 5 feet away from me. He is yelling at her. He says, "What is the matter with you?" She has left something in the airplane, and she's going, what women do. I'm so sorry. How stupid can you be? He says. So there I am, sitting right next to them with my commitment of never add aggression, always do something. Well, I have a song in my pocket, and the song in my pocket that I teach when I do my workshops and things is "Row, row, row your boat," because it's profound. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. When we sing, we produce endorphins in our brain. We access our neocortex. When people sing together, within 40 seconds, all our hearts are beating together. It's profound, and it's around. So I can't think of anything else to do. So I start singing, "Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream." Well, it doesn't do anything. I don't know. It doesn't stop him doing that. I'm not thinking that it will. I don't want to say, "You are shaming her in public." I don't want her to have to pay for my being a good person. So I'm sitting there still suffering with being in this moment, wanting to do something. And I sang. So I got my brain back. And so when she walked away, I said, "Read Brene Brown."
There you go. There you go.
But what I'm also going to do, I'm also going to make a little video and put it on Facebook where I go, "What's wrong with her? What's wrong with her is you. How stupid can she be? She can be so stupid that she puts up with you. And how stupid can you be to think that shaming somebody is going to turn them into a warrior?"
But you see, Vicki, this is an interesting thing because you're non-aggressive. You are a happy person. You feel like the life is great, and yet there are people around who set you off and make you feel angry. And isn't that an irony? Because if that guy didn't do that to his wife, if he was nicer, you would have been so pleased and so, still alive with all these great feelings. But unfortunately, we live in a world, and I say world because this is not only Americans who do this.
Right.
It happens all over the world. And how do we control it? How do we stop people from being so aggressive and so mean? I'm just going to use that word, mean. We have a lot of mean people.
Yeah, and what we can do is not be mean ourselves, so we cannot throw kerosene on the fire. I listen to Pema Chodron. I have a book reader from the Library from the Blind, and I listen. I was an English major, so I read so much. But I listen to Pema Chodron, When Things Fall Apart, almost every day. And what I have learned from her is not to try to suppress a feeling, any feeling, but to be able to sit with it. And so I can, instead of I used to try to beat down my anger, because when I was growing up, anger was only horrible and vicious and destructive. And so I emasculated myself. I disempowered myself, and then I became a doormat. So what I've learned to do is, I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling outraged. I'm feeling, and I can sit with it and I can breathe with it, and then come up with at least something to do. And so I'm going to make this little video. Well, it may not help this particular woman, but it may help. Who knows who it will help? It's on Facebook. Yes. They can share. It could go viral. And then I could be a little more outrageous, because I'm not talking to that man and that woman. I am talking about that situation, and I can let my sense of humor kind of out of the unwrap my wicked sense of humor, and because that wakes people up. Novelty wakes people up. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, you're taking yourself out of the volatility of the moment and coming back with something that is balm to the soul and really truly can ameliorate and teach at the same time. And of course, you've got that educator component. So, Vicki, I'm looking at the clock and I'm seeing the time has flown by, and I know that we're coming shortly to the end of our time together, as precious as it is. And I would love for you to tell our listeners, how are you available to the people listening to us right now, that they can reach you?
Well, you can go to my website, radicalkindnesswarrior.com. I work with individuals, couples, small business, conferences. What I really love to do is help people, whatever the stated goal is, the mission, I want to help people stay in alignment with that mission. So if your mission is to be a person who takes action without aggression, I can help you learn how to do that and deal with individual situations and do it at work. And boy, it just seems like now is the time we need this more than ever. So,
yeah.
Wow.
Well, so do you have a website? Can people see some of the things that you are actually doing?
Yeah, on the www.radicalkindnesswarrior.com, I've got videos of songs that I've done, and, just lots of free things. I love writing little songs, and so there are several of them that are on there, and they can see what I do and contact me. And if you know a group that wants to, the last retreat I did was on playful resilience. I thought, boy, I could do that the rest of my life.
Vicki, it sounds as though you have so much to offer the world, and I would really invite our listeners to go to www.radicalkindnesswarrior.com and explore what this amazing woman has to offer. I think you're a treasure trove, Vicki, of goodness for anyone who comes across your path. And I know just in this short 30 minutes that my day has been made better. My vistas in life today have been opened up, and there's a smile on my face. And I'm looking at hours yet in the recording studio. You have energized me and brightened up my day. And I really want to thank you for being who you are and sharing that with Susan, Brender, and myself, and with every listener who's going to be listening to this podcast in the future. Thank you so much.
And Vicki, just before we end the show, I always like to give my guests the last word. So, let's hear what you have to say, and then we'll end on the show. And I want to thank you as well. And, of course, Deidre, as my co-host, it's a pleasure to have you with me. So,
and it's an honor to be with you, Susan.
My pleasure. So, Vicki, last word.
I love this because I was wanting to say this. This is the latest song that I've written, and it was on that same trip back from Austin. And this woman asked me to watch her stuff while she went to get an iced coffee. And, do you want anything? I said, sure, I'd like an iced coffee. So she came back. I tried to pay her. She said, no, my grandma told me to try to do something every day for someone that they can't repay. Well, I can hear the song in that. So here's my latest song. And I put this up on my Facebook. friend me on Facebook because that's where all the recent stuff is. Vicki Hannah Lein at Facebook. So this is her grandma Anna, and the song goes, try to do something every day for someone, no need to repay, that's how we live our way into a kind and meaningful life.
Oh, that's great. Well, today my guests have been Vicki Lein, and of course my co-host is Deidre Regal, and we're going to do a lot of other shows together, and I want to thank Vicki. You know, Vicki, as Deidre said to you, I'm going to walk away just as happy as can be, because when somebody sings, I feel it transforms people in ways you can't even describe, and I'm the perfect example of it. So it's been a real pleasure, and thank you again.
Thank you so well. Thanks for having me on. This is great.
Thank you for listening to The Susan Brender Show. To be a guest, email sebrender@yahoo.com.